cheese. All right, welcome back to That's Some Cheese, part of the Vendetta Sports Podcast Network. Today is March 29th. It is Sunday morning, and we have maybe my favorite blogger on the line. Jarrod, what's going on today?
Favorite blogger? Shucks, mate. I'm honoured. No, not too much. We were just talking off air about the time difference. So I live about an hour outside of Melbourne in Australia, for those who aren't aware. So it's about 9:45 in Sunday evening here. So Trey, thank you for getting up at crazy o'clock on a Sunday morning to do this with me.
Well, unfortunately, I don't have much else to do. My job got pushed back because sports are not on, and figured I might as well set an alarm and get you on the podcast here.
Yeah, well, thankfully we're not in that situation yet, mate, but I appreciate you making the time nonetheless.
Anyway, let's jump into this, because maybe this is my brain because I'm a weirdo, but to me, you are the Australian version of Zach Lowe for our website. Is that a compliment you like? Is that something that you've sort of maybe looked up to? Is that your writing style? Where do you kind of see yourself? Because that's kind of how my mind goes when I read your articles.
I've been a fan of Zach ever since Bill Simmons had him on Smart Guy Wednesdays back in the Grantland days, about probably 10 years ago now. No, it's a huge compliment. Zach is probably my favourite NBA writer. There's other sports writers that I hold on, I guess, an equal footing to him. But as far as basketball, Zach's the man to me. He's got this ability to be very, very deeply analytical, but simplify it for people that don't understand what an elevator's door play or what a flare screen is. And he also keeps it kind of whimsical, which I like. He throws enough humour in there that it doesn't come off like a really dry analysis of the game.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I would say your articles, it kind of follows that sort of model where you throw in a humor clip and I don't really see it coming, but then it's filled up with all this data that I love, which is why it kind of reminded me of him.
No, that's I'll take that any day of the week, Trey. Anytime anybody says that they remind you of, quite possibly the best basketball writer in the world, even if it's just 10% reminding of him, I'll wear that happily.
Beautiful. So for those who have seen Jarrod in the past, or probably maybe can't put a voice to the name, he does the NBA Power Rankings. He does oftentimes 2 posts a week. The other one sort of changes up, but the primary post is that Power Rankings. My question is, do you ever get to like a Wednesday and you're like, shit, I don't want to do this?
Probably 2 out of 3 weeks, if I'm honest with you. The process for them is on a Tuesday morning, I get into work early and I do a quick quick look around to see what's happened in the last week. You check out which teams have got games on the Wednesday and Thursday our time, so Tuesday and Wednesday yours, so that you can order which teams you write about. Because if you try and write about 30 teams, if you try and put 4,500 words together after work, after the kids have gone to bed, all that sort of thing, you'll be up until 3 a.m. So you need to break it down. And you do a bit on Tuesday night, you get a little bit done on Wednesday, and then you get to Thursday when it's D-Day, when it's time to go. And sometimes you're raring to go because you've got all these great ideas. And there's other times where you're sitting there going, what on God's green earth am I going to write about? I've got nothing. And inspiration comes to you in weird little ways. You might be I might write something about the Rockets, and that might remind me about something I wanted to write for the Magic, a completely unrelated team. Or it might remind me to have a look at a particular player's stats, and that's what you write about. So it sort of flows organically, but there are times when you sit there and you go, I can't do this, not tonight.
Yeah, so when you're writing those, like obviously right now there's no games on, so I'd love to watch even the Knicks right now. But during the grind of the regular season, I find it I would never want to be a team reporter because over an 82 game season, I would just find myself so repetitive. How do you change up the material to me because I don't know if I could do that.
Well, that's probably the strength of trying to cover the whole league. If you look at Gavin Daly, who writes a lot about hockey, he covers a lot of Avalanche stuff. So he almost becomes, in a sense, a beat writer, which means he can get really, really deep dive, nitty gritty stuff about the Lanch. But he's not covering the Rangers, he's not covering the Habs, he's not covering the Nucks. So, in a sense, because I don't have to put together 2 or 3 articles a week of 1,500 to 2,000 words on, I'm a Utah fan, so let's say just Utah, then it allows me to, I guess, keep an idea up my sleeve if I need to. It's one of the better things about writing about the whole league is that you don't need to deep dive quite as much in a particular subject.
Here's the other question I have, and maybe I just haven't picked up on this, and maybe it's probably a good thing, but do you have a favorite team? Because I can never tell when you're writing, which is probably good.
It's a very conscious thing. I've been a Utah fan since the probably mid-'80s. I started watching the NBA in 1984. So, yeah, I've been a Utah fan since, before Stockton was on the team, that long ago.
That's interesting.
Back when Ricky Green was running the show. So back in Australia at that stage, we literally got one NBA game per week, and there was always one of the Lakers, Celtics, Knicks, or Sixers on, because they were the big draws. And I remember sitting down with my uncle watching a game, and he's a Celtics fan, and it was Celtics Utah. And my nickname being Jarrod was Jazz. All my aunties and uncles and friends called me Jazz, as you do when you're 6 years old. And I thought, that team has my name, and instantly that was my team.
This makes a lot more sense. Now I know why you got offended when I said something about Rudy Gobert.
No, don't mess with my man, Trey. But on to your point though, I'm very conscious of not, I suppose, letting my own biases come across. Obviously, they do come across in the writing. Like now that people know I'm a Utah fan, they'll probably read stuff that I write on Utah players or the power rankings whenever they come back, 2025, something like that.
Oh, God.
And, I know, I don't think I'd last. They'll probably see that there's a little bit more celebratory tone when things are going well, or a little bit more vitriol when things are going badly. But I try to keep that out.
That's fine. I don't care if you say the Jazz are number one. As long as you make it makes sense and everything is well written, it doesn't matter to me.
It's another one of those things where if you're doing all the teams, you need to be as I suppose level as possible. As you know, I do live commentary for basketball over here in Australia as well, and one of my pet hates is whenever I've got a co-commentator on, because we commentate the home games for the particular team, for the men's and women's teams. And so we're essentially like the local broadcaster, for want of a better way to put it. But it really bothers me when my co-commentators come up with the we and us and they and them. We don't know where people are watching from, whether they support the Ballarat teams or whether they support the opposition or whether they're neutral. So I try and keep the commentary as neutral as possible. And it's just a bit of a bugbear to me that I don't like to come across as a homer.
Yeah, I want to get to that in a second, but I find it interesting because I follow Boston sports more than any other sports city, but to me it's sort of swung the other way to where maybe this is just a city-to-city thing, but the media in Boston is so negative. They find anything that can go wrong, that's the story they'll put out. And maybe it's because they have the Patriots who win all the time and the Red Sox who win all the time and the Celtics who usually win. But they're just so negative that I hate going that route when I talk about those teams. Maybe that's a city thing, but What would you say the media is like in Australia? Because I think here in the U.S., it depends so much on what city and what team is being covered.
Well, it's just on the Boston thing. First of all, there were so many years where the Bruins weren't winning. The Red Sox, of course, didn't win for generations. Who else? The Celtics didn't win for 20 years. Yeah, there was a whole, and the Pats were horrible before Brady turned up. Was there I suppose, a different way of reporting the news back before Boston actually became successful in sports again, from your memories?
I just think it's always been the same. Like, even now, like, the world's falling down because, I don't know, somebody gets hurt. And just, it feels like the Red Sox have won 4 championships, like, since 2000, which is the most of any team. And it just feels like constantly the media just wants to act like they're the Royals or something.
Well, I got to admit, I don't follow baseball at all, and I've heard a lot about this fella that Boston traded, who's apparently a superstar. And like, if the guy walked into my house right now, he'd have to introduce himself. I don't know his name, I don't know his face, but I hear reports from outside of Boston to say, well, they had to do it because of X, Y, and Z. But the Boston-based or the Boston-biased media that I see, it's like an apocalypse for them.
Exactly. That's the sort of thing that I'm getting at. But that's interesting that you go that route, because you guys have cricket there. Are you a big cricket fan? Because to me, I love baseball, and it's not really like the sport. To me, it's like such a relaxing thing to where I can either go to a game and have a great time, or I can sit on the couch and it's like a marathon. I can pause the screen, do something else for an hour, and skip through everything. And I kind of watch it on my own terms. Do you like cricket, or is that not a thing to you?
Cricket. Oh no, I love cricket. I'm one of the guys who thinks that one-day internationals and the T20 formats, like the shorter versions of the games, are bastardised versions of real cricket. To me, cricket is test match cricket, 5-day matches, and the slow burn and the tactics that go into that. It is a little bit of a nerd out thing for me. I love all the tactical stuff, but I could give or take an Australian one-day game, but if there's an Australian test anywhere in the world, I'm either listening to it on the radio, or I'm watching it, or I'm getting reports, or I've got an app for the live scores. I can't get enough of it. I love my cricket.
So let's go to a day in the life of Jarrod. You live in Australia. You wake up on a Monday, Tuesday morning. What is your day like? Because you're a really busy man, and I bet a lot of people would be curious to see what you're doing on a day-to-day basis.
Well, a lot less now that the entire sports world is being cancelled.
Yeah.
But if we bring it back, say 12 months, that's probably a better way to look at it, what a usual day would be like, because nothing is normal at the moment. So regular weekdays, obviously, go to work. I drive about an hour 10 each way to get to work, do all my work, come home. I run a basketball club, a local junior club, and there's obviously a lot of work that goes into that, along with the rest of the committee. So we have all of our meetings and emails and whatnot there. As we mentioned, I do the live commentary, so there's generally 10 games or 20 games, because they're double headers, plus finals, and occasionally you might do an away game if the home commentators can't make it. I also coach a whole bunch of teams and mentor coaches within the junior basketball club. I still drag my sorry ass up and down the court once a week. It's purely to drink afterwards. We are purely doing it for the social element. There's no competitiveness to what we do. Then there's also the family life. My wife is extremely busy at the moment. She's an emergency department nurse, so she's got it all going on right now.
Wow.
But she works shift work. Can you still hear me, Trey?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, beautiful. So she's a shift working nurse, and throwing that I've got 2 boys, 12 and an 8-year-old, who are obviously as crazy active as a 12 and an 8-year-old boy can be. So things are busy, but at the same time, I don't like to not be busy. I'm somebody who can get very lazy if I'm not constantly moving. So I need that business. So I do enjoy it. As much as you get to the odd Wednesday and go, how the hell am I going to do everything?
Yeah, that's the hard thing for me. I don't have kids and I don't have a wife. I don't know how I can possibly take care of kids and do everything. I don't know how you do it.
Oh, look, my wife is an absolute champion. She's got more energy than I do. She's remarkable. And we get help from family and those sort of things. My parents are both retired, so they help where they can. But at the same time, it is a busy schedule. And, yeah, I enjoy that. I prefer that to the opposite.
What would you say you get out of commentating the games? Because that's something I would absolutely love to do. But I guess sort of the element in Australia, how would you say it compares to maybe a game in the United States? What would be the differences, the travel schedule, the teams, the competition? What would you say that's like when you're commentating the games?
Well, I commentate at what's called NBL 1 level, which is, I suppose, is the equivalent of the G League. It's that one step below the top national league.
Is that where RJ Hampton was playing or no?
No, he was in the NBL proper. He was in the national competition. Same as Ball, Terence Ferguson a few years back as well. Torrey Craig, Jordan McRae. There'd be people I'm forgetting, but there's been quite a few that have come to the NBL as youngsters, even after college, and then moved back to the NBA and managed to establish themselves. So NBL 1, just due to the fact that there is less money in the game here than what there is in the States, NBL 1 is split into 3 conferences, and they're purely done geographically. So we're in what's called NBL 1 South, which takes in the southeastern corner of Australia. And as I said, I generally only do home games, so that's nice and easy. It's a 25-minute drive to the stadium, easy done, that's fine. But the teams will travel between various parts of Melbourne out to country Victoria, a couple of hours out of Melbourne, sometimes across to South Australia or over the Bass Strait to Tasmania, which is about an hour's flight plus whatever drive. So it is very localised, and the reason for that is purely to save money. We're a country that's not, give or take, we're the same size as America geographically, so we couldn't have a second-tier competition with a team travelling from, say, Florida to Washington State, for instance. It wouldn't be viable. The style is very different to the NBA, though. It's nowhere near as athletic. It's a different stratosphere. Even going back 30 years ago, the NBL was much more of a small man's league. You would have guys who would be 6'8" small forwards or tweener forwards over in the States who are over here as big, powerful centres. So it's always been a league that focuses on ball movement and three-point shooting. So in that sense, I actually preferred, as much as I loved the NBA in the 90s, I actually preferred the style of playing the NBL in the 90s because it wasn't that New York Knicks, Miami Heat, beat everyone around the years bully ball. It was a lot of ball movement, a lot of speed.
I have 2 more things for you. I love to travel. Absolutely love to travel. I would love to go to Australia one day. What would you say your favorite things to do in Australia would be? What would you say your favorite food would be in Australia? Because those things I absolutely love finding out when I travel to cities.
Well, Australia being a fairly young country, we don't really have a cuisine as such, like a definitive style of food. So therefore, my favourite food is the completely Australian invention of lasagna. But as far as places to go, things to do, much like the States, we've got so many different things. We've got rainforest to desert to bush to temperate hills to surf beaches to cliffs that run for hundreds and hundreds of miles. So it really depends what you want to do. But the good thing about Australia is if you come over here, I sound like a tourism ad now. If you come over here for 3 months and you just buy a beaten up old car, you can literally just travel around, drive for 5 or 6 hours, and you might go from skiing to surfing. Then you might go somewhere else, drive for a couple of days, and you're in the rainforest, drive for 6 or 7 hours the next day, and you're in the desert. There's such a variety of things to do because we've got such a variety of landscapes here. As far as my personal things to do, I love skiing, although my knees don't take it that well anymore. And I'd love to get out and surf, which is a very Australian thing to say, I've got to admit.
I'm not a big surfer guy at all, but I would absolutely love to see what's going on because I love to travel.
Man, you either are ocean or you aren't. There's no grey area. Yeah. People either love the beach and will go there all the time, or they will run for the hills as soon as they hear or feel sand in their toes. So yeah, you're not alone there, man. There's plenty of Australians who would sit there and hate the beach.
I like the beach. I just don't like surfing and going crazy in the water. Just let me hang out,
Oh man, yeah, that's no fun.
All right, last thing for you. Your goal,
yes.
5 years from now. What's Jarrod doing? What are you accomplishing? What are you looking forward to?
There's a lot of big, deep philosophical things I could go into, but I'll stick to the writing and media work. I'd like to have kidnapped Zach Lowe, be wearing his skin as a coat, and everybody thinking I'm the greatest writer in the world.
All right, I like
modest goals.
All right, I like that answer. Jarrod, do you have anything else you want to share for the people that are listening out there, trying to get to know you better? Any dark, hidden secrets?
Well, not that I'm going to say on a podcast, Harry. Come on. It's called Secrets.
Yeah.
I guess I want to say I appreciate the opportunity that you have given me as a platform in the States. I do write for a site in Australia as well, as you know, but that one doesn't really focus on basketball. It doesn't have a basketball audience outside of me. To be able to tap into an audience in the heartland, so to speak, is really important to me. So thank you personally, but also to all of the people that bother to click on my articles and take half an hour out of their day to read them. I really do appreciate it. And if you've got comments, throw them up there. Hit up the Vendetta Facebook page. If you want to take me to task on anything, I am always up for a talk on basketball. Always. So if people want to engage, feel free. I'm always up for a chat.
Well, you definitely have a nice little following. I'd say there's always a steady number of people that read your power rankings every single week. I'll say that we're not even close to where I want to be. Have a long way to go, but I appreciate you coming on the podcast and letting the people know who you are and shit.
No, thank you, mate. I appreciate the chance to talk to everybody more directly.
All right, guys, and that's going to do it for this episode of That's Some Cheese. Until next time, we will see you soon.
Tell you something. You know what really grinds my gears? You, America. Fuck you, Diane.